what's good everyone? So the Sony A7C is the latest addition to my camera gear. Ever since the A7C came out, I was always interested in the camera due to its compact size. However, when I went to check it out in the store, I was put off by the lack of buttons and dials and the plasticky build quality. But recently I've been looking for a smaller setup that's good for street photography and as an everyday carry camera. I was highly considering getting a Fujifilm X100 series, but I already have a bunch of Sony full-frame lenses, so the A7C just made sense. In this POV photo walk video, I'll be sharing my initial thoughts on using the Sony A7C for the first time. I'll be voicing over the POV footage and going over some tips and tricks as I'm shooting the photos. And in addition to showing the good shots, I'll also be showing you guys all of the throwaways, because honestly, there are very few keepers from these types of photo walks, and it's always good to learn from those throwaway shots. On screen, you will also see the raw file as well as the edited file, and all of the images are edited with my preset system, and the link is in the description if you want to check it out and support my channel. Now let's jump right into the POV footage. Starting off the photo walk, I like to take a quick and easy shot as a warm-up. This way, I can get used to the camera and make sure that all my settings are dialed in. As you can see, it's a nice and simple composition, nothing special here. Now this next block had some really interesting speckled lighting that I wanted to capture. You can see I'm still not too familiar with the camera because this is the first time that I'm shooting with the Sony A7C. I instinctively want to move my thumb down to adjust the focus point, but it doesn't have that knob on the back of this camera. But since my scene was pretty much flat, I really didn't need to adjust the focus anyway. This final image came out pretty nice and I really like the layers of interesting texture and light. As I'm crossing the street, I noticed the blue triangle building on the opposite corner, and I was getting ready to take the photo when I noticed a guy on a city bike riding towards me. So instead, I took a few steps back in anticipation of where he would stop. However, he ended up pretty close to me, and since I was shooting with the 45mm, it's a really tight frame, where his arm and the rest of the bike was cut off. But even though it was tighter than I would have liked, this shot is still a keeper for me because of its spontaneous nature. Then I walked around him and took a photo of the building like I had originally wanted to. Further down on the same block, I noticed this green dumpster with an opening and a slit on the other side. I tried this composition where there was a frame within the frame, but it was just too busy. Then I moved around and tried a tighter shot where you could better see the people through that opening. While I was shooting, I thought these images would look pretty cool, but as I'm reviewing them, I'm pretty disappointed in the way they turned out. At this next location, I really like how the corner of the building across the street was curved. The light was hitting it from the side and it was creating a very nice soft roll-off around that bend. Now this is a tight crop, but I'm still really impressed with all the detail, even though the sensor on the A7C is only 24 megapixels. Then I tried a horizontal composition where you are able to see more of the arches on one side of the building. Not having that front dial doesn't really matter in situations like this where I can take my time to adjust my settings, but I still miss it and I still try to reach for it even though it's not there. Next up, you can see I was posting an Instagram story when I noticed someone walking through the frame, so I picked up the camera and snapped a shot. I post POV stories of all my photo walks, so follow me on Instagram if you want to be the first to see some of those images when I'm on the streets. In the same area, I spotted these construction people standing on some scaffolding, and they were perfectly lit by the sun. This first image was a vertical frame of just one of the guys, and I really liked the color contrast between the green shirt and the orange barriers. Then I moved forward and repositioned myself to capture another composition where you can see both of the workers. However, the lighting here wasn't as good as the first shot. Walking past the construction area, I noticed someone across the street pulling a cooler. So I stopped where I was and was preparing the shot, waiting for him to walk across my frame. And while this shot, like some of the previous ones, weren't the most interesting, I still have been enjoying the shooting experience because of how light and nimble the A7C feels. Paired with a small lens like the 45mm, it's a really compact package. Next up, you can see I am furiously adjusting the dial on the back to expose for the light at this next street corner. Having all of the dials on the rear of the camera definitely slows down the process, and while I wasn't manually able to adjust the autofocus point, you can see the camera did a pretty good job on locking on the subject, and this image turned out really nicely. I liked the light in this area, so I waited around some more and captured another very similar looking shot. For this one, I really liked how his dark blue outfit matched the tones of the muted greens and reds in the scene. At this next spot, you can see I had Instagram open on my phone and I was prepared to capture another Instagram story. As the person walks through, I'm recording the camera for some POV footage. And oftentimes I only shoot with one hand because my other hand is holding my phone, so I'm still getting used to the one-handed shooting of the A7C. But because the sensor and dynamic range is so good, I'm not really worried about trying to nail exposure because I can always adjust it after the fact in post. Now this intersection had really harsh light that cut straight across the scene. I used burst mode here to try and capture the guy in mid-stride. And this is one of my favorites from the photo walk so far. I just really like that harsh lighting and how the background fades into the darkness, especially with this edit. I keep waiting around this area to try and capture a vertical composition. You can see the autofocus points got a bit confused and moved past the subject, but most of the shots were still in focus, and I do enjoy this final image. Here I'm using the side of this outdoor dining structure as a foreground element and took a picture of this person reading on a bench. Again, this was another example of one of those shots that I thought would look good, but it just doesn't come out quite the way I expected. The lighting here was really interesting because the entire section was in shade except for this tiny sliver of light. The scene was really nice as well, with the bright yellow dining set contrasting against the blue bike. Unfortunately, there was nobody there, so the image was kind of lifeless. And as someone walked past, I tried to capture this image, which was a bit better, but it would have been perfect if someone was actually eating at the table. Now in the middle of this block, I saw this old car in front of this building with the faded brick. Again, I'm just waiting around for someone to walk through and bring some life into the scene. And this guy was actually perfect for the shot. His outfit, facial expression, and overall demeanor just matched the scene and helped pull this story together. Now I'm at one of the last locations of the day, and I thought this building on the corner was interesting. The outside was covered in graffiti and old posters. However, it was a pretty challenging scene to shoot. I wasn't sure what type of composition worked best, and out of all the shots, this was the best one that I had. It's not great, and I will probably come back and revisit this location another time to try and capture a better image. As for these last few shots, I liked the architecture of this hospital building and how the windows were designed. The white and black contrast against the blue sky made for really simple but striking images. The vertical composition was stronger, especially with that tighter crop. Alright, so my initial impressions of the Sony A7C are generally pretty positive. I love the compact and lightweight nature, and it's really a joy to shoot with. However, because it's so lightweight, the plastic build quality definitely feels more flimsy and cheap compared to the Sony A7R4. The grip on the camera is also strangely shaped, and it's not that the grip is small because the A6000 also has a small grip, but I have no problems with that camera. There is something about the shape of the A7C that I just have to get used to. But my biggest gripe is definitely the lack of customizable buttons and the lack of a front dial. I keep trying to reach for buttons that aren't there, but again, it's one of those things where I can get used to if I just keep shooting with the camera. But like I said, the shooting experience is definitely the highlight. I love how small and discreet it is, and when I'm out on the streets, it makes me feel like I'm more behind the scenes, capturing and documenting the moment, rather than being in the middle of the action with a big full-frame camera. Once I spend more time with this camera, I'm going to make an updated video about it, so let me know if you guys have any questions. I know this camera's already been out for a while, so it's nice to see how it still stacks up in 2022. That's pretty much it for this video. If you like the way the photos are edited, definitely check out my preset system in the description below. And if you want to support my channel, like this video and please subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.